Welcome to Quick Course Digest. Today, we're jumping into a huge topic, change management. It's a skill we all need because let's be real, change is pretty much the only constant in our work and in our lives. But that leads to a really interesting puzzle. If change is always happening, why are we so often, bad at it? That's the big question we're going to unpack together. And this quote right here, it just gets to the very heart of the problem. It's all about this constant tension, this balancing act, right? We absolutely need new ideas and new directions to grow, but at the same time, we need some stability just to function day to day. It's a paradox. How do you push forward into the unknown while also holding everything together? But here is the really harsh reality. Take a look at this number, 70%. Research shows again and again that about 70% of all major change programs fail to hit their goals. Just let that sink in for a second. 7 out of every 10 times our best laid plans, all that effort, it just fizzles out. It's an incredible waste of time, money, and human energy. Which brings us right back to that big question. If we're always experiencing change, why do we fail so often? And it's not for a lack of trying, is it? We write the strategies, we hold the meetings, we create the presentations. The real issue, as we're about to see, is that we tend to misunderstand the one thing at the absolute center of it all, our own minds. So let's use a brilliant metaphor to understand this. Imagine you have a logical rider sitting on top of a giant, powerful, emotional elephant. The rider, that's your rational brain. It loves to analyze, to plan, to think about the long term. But the elephant? That's your emotional core. It's where all your energy comes from, but it's also driven by instinct, by fear, and by the desire for what feels good right now. And here's the fundamental problem of change. No matter how perfect the writer's plan is, if that 6-ton elephant doesn't want to move, you are going absolutely nowhere. Okay, so how in the world do we get them to move together? It really comes down to a 3-part strategy. Let's start with part 1, directing the rider. This is all about giving our logical brain the clarity it desperately needs. Think about it. The rider gets completely stuck when things are ambiguous. Too many choices, a fuzzy destination. It just leads to what we call analysis paralysis. The key is to get rid of that ambiguity. You have to give the rider a crystal clear destination and a map that shows how to get there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be clear. And one of the most famous maps for the rider is Cotter's 8-step model. You can see right here, it's a super logical progression. It starts by creating a sense of urgency, answering that critical question, why do we have to do this now? From there, you build your team, create a clear vision, and then you communicate that vision over and over again. This isn't just a checklist, it's a structured process that gives that rational rider the confidence it needs to start the journey. Here's another great tool for the rider, the strategic management process. You can see the flow, right? It goes from that big picture vision all the way down to concrete, measurable goals and execution. The big takeaway from both of these models is this. For our rational side to get on board, the destination can't be fuzzy. It needs a clear, logical plan it can actually follow. But even if you have the world's greatest map, you are still going absolutely nowhere if the elephant refuses to take a single step. And that brings us to part 2, motivating the elephant. This is where we shift from thinking to feeling. You have to remember, the elephant is the engine. It provides all the power, all the energy for this journey. But it is also really anxious and easily spooked. While your rider is analyzing the beautiful mountain range in the distance, the elephant is panicking about the tiny mouse at its feet. It craves safety and comfort. You can't just reason with that kind of fear. You have to find a way to appeal to its emotions. So, how do you motivate a totally overwhelmed elephant? Well, the single best tactic is to shrink the change. A massive, far-off goal is just paralyzing. But if you break it down into small, visible, quick wins, you make the elephant feel successful right away. It's like when you move into a new house. The thought of unpacking everything is terrifying. But if you tell yourself, I'm just going to unpack this one small stack of plates, that quick win gives you the emotional boost you need to tackle the next one. And it's so important to understand why the elephant resists. It's not just being stubborn. As you can see from these common reasons, resistance almost always comes from a place of emotion. It's fear of the unknown, it's a memory of past failures, it's a feeling that this change threatens a core value. These are deep emotional walls, and you can't just knock them down with a PowerPoint presentation. So this is the classic internal conflict. The rider wants to go to the long-term destination, but the elephant wants to find the nearest patch of shade and take a nap. This internal tug-of-war is exactly where most change efforts grind to a halt. So, what can we do when this happens? Well, this table lays out our main options. The rider could try competition, just trying to force the elephant forward. That's a win-lose battle, and trust me, you'll eventually lose through sheer exhaustion. On the flip side, accommodation is just giving in completely. The elephant wins, but you make zero progress. Compromise is a bit better, but it's still a partial win for both. The real gold standard, the goal, is collaboration. A true win-win where you find a clever way to meet the rider's long-term goal while also giving the elephant the emotional reward it needs. All right, so we've got a clear direction for our rider and a motivated elephant. We should be good to go, right? Well, not quite. There's a third, and often overlooked, piece of the puzzle. We have to shape the path. We have to literally clear the way for them. This is such a powerful idea. Sometimes when you're stuck, the problem isn't the rider's plan or the elephant's motivation at all. Sometimes the problem is a giant boulder sitting right in the middle of the path. Instead of trying to push harder, a great leader's job is to just move the boulder. In other words, change the environment to make the right behaviors easier and the wrong ones harder. And a lot of the time, the path is being shaped by massive external forces that are totally out of our control. Think about things like new technologies, economic shifts, or new regulations. Blockbuster didn't fail because it had a lazy elephant. It failed because Netflix came along and completely bulldozed its path and paved a brand new one. Sometimes the world changes the path for you, whether you like it or not. But the pressure to change the path can also come from inside an organization. Sometimes it's a full-blown crisis, like when Harley-Davidson's quality was so bad in the 80s that it almost went under. Other times, a new CEO comes in with a totally new vision and reshapes the company's entire strategy. These internal forces can be just as powerful as the external ones. And this idea applies to the entire life of an organization. Every company is on its own path, from that scrappy startup phase to maturity and potentially decline. Understanding where your organization is on this timeline is absolutely critical. Trying to implement a nimble, fast-paced change in a mature, bureaucratic company is like trying to drive a Ferrari on a bumpy, unpaved road. You have to shape the path according to the terrain you're on. So, we have these three powerful strategies: direct the rider, motivate the elephant, and shape the path. But they don't just happen by magic. To orchestrate all three, you need one final crucial element: a leader who can act as the guide for the entire journey. This really sums it all up, doesn't it? Great change leadership isn't about barking orders from the back. It's about being a skillful guide. A great leader has the wisdom to know when the team needs a clearer map for the rider, when they need an emotional boost for the elephant, and when they just need someone to get out there and start clearing rocks off the path. A perfect example of this in action is transformational leadership. These are the leaders who are masters of the entire system. They paint such a compelling vision of the future that the rider gets genuinely excited about the destination. And at the exact same time, they inspire and energize the team, giving the elephant all the emotional fuel it needs for that long journey. But maybe the most advanced skill of all is what's known as situational leadership. This is the true chameleon style. A situational leader doesn't have one fixed approach. They are constantly assessing the situation. Right now, does my rider need more direction? Does the elephant need encouragement? Or is the path the biggest problem we're facing? They adapt their approach in real time to solve whatever the most pressing issue is at that moment. So, let's leave you with this final thought. Think about a change you're trying to make right now. Could be something big at work or something small in your own life. Are you spending all of your energy trying to convince the rider with logic and data and spreadsheets? Or are you also taking the time to motivate that emotional elephant and, just as importantly, to clear and shape the path? Because managing all three, that is the real secret to making change actually happen.